You're listening to The Sister Trill with Danae and Kiveli.
Hi everybody, welcome back to The Sister Trill. I'm Kiveli.
And I'm Danae.
And we're coming to you live from our mutual home in Berlin. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how it is to be a woman in the entertainment industry. Danae and I both grew up playing the piano. We started when we were very young. And we definitely have had many experiences in the classical music industry. And we wanted to focus on today, especially how those experiences might have been influenced by the fact that we're both female. But before we get into this topic, let's first start with what we disagreed on this week.
So let's first start with the fact that I'm sick, and this is why my voice sounds like this. So sorry if I sound very coarse. I'm doing my very best to be audible today, but yeah, this is what we're dealing with. So this week we actually had a major disagreement on one of the normal topics that we disagree on, which is concretely what it was about. This week was, again, I think we've talked about this once already, whether we are going to buy expensive podcast equipment or not. And generally the disagreement is more about, I would say I'm more of a doer. I want to just do things, just get them started, just get going. And Kiveli's more of wants to be perfectly prepared and like have all the tools for the situation before she gets going. And for me personally, I mean, I can tell you my perspective, obviously you know it already, but for me, I feel like before I go and spend so much money, there are two aspects. One aspect is I feel like I have to earn it first. I mean, not actually financially earn it, but like physically, emotionally, mentally earn it. Put in some energy first, like energetically earn it. So first put in a lot of thought, put in a lot of concentration, put in a lot of effort before I can actually earn rewarding myself with, let's say, the expensive equipment. And then, of course, the second part is also maybe also financially earn it before I spend the money. And then the other thing is also, I feel like if you first wait until everything's perfect, I feel like that point of perfect never really exists. And in a way, I feel like it's just stalling. And that's what I don't like about it. I feel it's like stalling, like pushing back, just saying, yeah, I want to start, but I can't just yet. I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right mic. I don't have the right lights. And I feel like just do it, just get going, and everything else is going to come automatically.
And I totally see the risk of that being a consequence of trying to be as prepared as possible. I just come, I think, more from the mentality of that it's worth investing in yourself, and it's worth investing in an idea that you believe in, and that obviously not the more you invest, the better it's going to be. There is obviously a point in which like you can also invest too much. But generally, I think instead of just doing it with whatever means you have at that point in time, it's worth investing in having more means and creating a better product, because I believe that increases your chances to present that product in a better way. And I believe that, you have to kind of find the sweet spot. Probably I'm more of a person that would invest too much, and you're more of a person that would invest too little. And I think that that's actually quite good, that we can try to find that sweet spot where we invest more than you would and less than I would, but maybe exactly enough.
I think we're
to
probably
present the product in the best
mixture.
way.
We're the perfect mixture of both, but when we discuss it, it's horrible, because I'm on the extreme of the one side, Kiveli's on the extreme of the other side, and I'm always like, why
and
don't
the
you
other
get
and
it?
the other thing that, by the way, I have to say is there is a difference if the means are somehow scarce. But I believe that when we talk about this specific situation, it's not that we would have to save on food in order to buy a better mic, It's maybe more of a question of, when you said, the emotional feeling of investing in it or not.
Yeah, for me, it's a very strongly emotional and mental. Also.
Exactly.
Because I feel like for the podcast, we've done a couple of episodes now, but for me, it feels like we should be a year down the line, have the first 50, 60
I also
episodes
feel
out.
like I would not want to, let's just say, in an ideal scenario, that the podcast is super successful in 5 years. I would not want to look back at the first episodes and them being, episodes. And those being, and topics that we're super passionate about, being in a lesser quality, being, kind of, I would want it to be high quality from the first time.
But
for me,
is high quality.
Yeah, but for me, it's like almost you would never go on stage, right, and play a piece that's only halfway there just to do it.
Yeah, but
if it's if it's this product, you're even higher. I would say, like, you want to be as well prepared as possible. And I kind of would translate that. Just you don't see spending money. It's not connected to energy, like not effort, not energy, not connected to effort. Therefore, you almost see like it's an easy thing.
Yeah,
but I think it's also a type of
stage
investment.
thing is a great example because that's exactly the example I would use just for my perspective, because I would practice my butt off so that I can give the best performance ever, but I wouldn't care what piano is on stage. Yeah, because the equipment that I cannot influence, that is not me, like my personality shines through, let's say, anyway. So like the bad piano wouldn't bother me because I feel like my abilities will still shine.
But that is if you can't influence it. You just said we can influence our equipment. It's not the piano you actually can't influence, but we can.
I mean, you could, let's say, be one of those pianists that travels
right,
with a piano.
But I mean, that is, of course, the level of effort to travel your own piano is not proportionate to the level of like how much better you would sound with your personal instrument, hopefully.
I mean, I also think we don't have bad equipment here. Of course, we're also talking on a high level.
We're talking about travel equipment, which we don't have
want travel equipment. We want like a kind of it's more of a comfort thing, I would say, like a rig that we can install here so that we can have everything readily available, because you see us sitting here, but actually the way it looks for us is very do-it-yourself, with stands on the sofa and camera on the sofa.
Exactly. So basically this room is not very inhabitable,
but still it's doable. The result is good.
Of course. But then again, for me, it's a matter of again, if we wouldn't have the means, I would obviously, keep it, don't make it more comfortable or anything. But if we do, for me, it's like I quite think like, okay, this X amount of money, otherwise I would spend it on some other thing to indulge. I would spend it on clothes, I would spend it on a trip, I would spend it on something like that. And I'd rather spend it on this idea, on us. And it's
I'm just a mama with kids who wants to spend the money on the kids' college education.
I mean, that would be, if that were, sure, but that's not true. I mean, let's face it, who spent more money on your kids? I spend more money on your kids.
Wait a minute, I don't want a college education for my kids.
But college in Germany is very cheap.
No, I mean, I'm just saying.
Unless, of course, I know, obviously, but I'm saying like,
just bills for the kids,
right?
Medical bills.
But we both know that within those bills and everything, you could still buy mics.
Of course,
right. That's what I'm trying to say, right? It's not
like the mama mentality.
It's not the choice between bills, like medical bills for your kids, or good podcast equipment. Then I would not say good podcast equipment. All right. Actually, like this was the one disagreement, like the big disagreement we had.
This was the major disagreement. But maybe you could chime in on this and let us know. Are you a person who first invests in a lot of things, kind of wants to have everything set and then start off with, let's say, perfect equipment or whatever it is? Or are you someone who just says, I just want to start no matter what.
But I would like to say it's not just in equipment, like in like financial investment that we, like that philosophy impacts the way we approach things when we start new projects. It's also a matter of expertise. Like many times I want to like gather more information, do more research, feel like I come from a more competent point of view to be able to, before I, launch something. And many times also there you're like, no, learn by doing in a kind of way,
But if I can give a different example, I don't know if it's a bit of a touchy subject, then just interrupt me. But no, but I feel like a similar example is our approach to fitness. Because I always was someone who just said, get up in the morning. I'm someone who does a lot of yoga, but even if it wasn't yoga, there was a time I did the 7-minute workout, just something simple, just get it done, 10 minutes in the morning. And you always very much said, what's that? It's not something proper. You were looking for like either a fitness studio subscription where you can go or get the equipment. Now you have this fancy TRX equipment thing.
Which works for me.
Get that going. No, but I'm just saying, so similar disagreement in the approach.
Of course, this definitely in many situations, especially when there is not like, I would say, a quote unquote product involved or something, a project that goes towards the public, when it's just something for yourself, your approach is probably better in the sense that you start quicker, you just try stuff and you get to some sort of goal quicker, for sure. Like when you said fitness, it's not like you're doing it for a competition or anything. You're just doing it for yourself. I think that my philosophy is especially more beneficial when it comes to creating something that like a product or a project that's actually going to go out to the public that needs to compete with other products. Your fitness regime doesn't have to compete with any other fitness regime. But you're right that the philosophy is also influencing there.
Yeah.
Where to me it is much harder to get new things going that I'm not 100% convinced of.
Yeah.
And if I am, then of course I go all in.
Yeah.
Again, it's true.
Yeah. So let us know what type you are.
Yes.
Are you the Kiveli type or the Danae type?
All right, so let's get into this subject. Actually, it was one that I was very excited to talk about and to do. And I don't know if one episode is going to be enough, or maybe we need to revisit this topic again in a different point, because it's one that is so controversial right now and so current, which is like basically categorizing everything in life into the roles of, kind of very easily identifiable characteristics. One that I would say we are most get in touch with most, being gender, of course. But there are other ones as well that we are probably far less qualified to talk, like race and things like that, or religion. But we are maybe a bit qualified to talk about the gender aspect and being female in a quote unquote male-dominated business. But then most businesses used to be male-dominated. So I suppose that's the same in every business. So my first question would be, do you remember the first time you even became aware of the fact that being a woman versus being a man in, let's just say, our industry was different? Or like, because obviously now it's being talked about everywhere. But do you remember the first situation? Because I remember one specific thing, but I was wondering.
I remember that the first time I became aware of it was when we changed to our second teacher, Professor Kemmerling, and he mentioned it.
Okay.
He said to me, you have to play this more like a man, he said, because this is how, for a competition, the jury expects to hear it.
Interesting.
So this was the very first time I even thought about it, because before that I was with a female piano teacher playing with another girl piano duo. So it was very, very girly, the whole thing for me, very female dominated, and I didn't feel that it was male dominated at all. But then when he made that comment, and I remember I was a bit confused, and I remember said to my mother, like, is that bad? Is it better to play like a man?
Really? Wow. Okay.
So
you remember how old you were?
Not exactly, but maybe something like 15, 16, something like that.
Okay. So also like later on it was okay.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting. That was like actually one that was directed at you, like a comment. Because I remember it in a situation that had nothing to do with me. And I don't know if you remember the time where there had a position had opened up at our university, and the two finalists were both prior students of our teacher. And one was a man and one was a woman. And our teacher was kind of discussing on the phone with someone. And then he explained it, I think, more also to our mother about and she explained it then to me because I didn't understand the concept. He was saying that the man that was up for it had a better audition, but that the female, I remember the German word is Frauenbeauftragte.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the English word for it is.
It's basically someone who's in a position to ensure that the women's rights are being met.
Exactly. Yeah. That she was fighting for the fact that the female finalist should get the position, although she'd had her audition was worse.
Yeah.
And that and I remember we actually knew both the finalists. We knew the man better, to be honest. With him, we'd actually had lessons. With the female one, we just heard her in concerts. And I remember she was telling me, my mom was telling me, yeah, he's better, but she is a woman. And I thought to myself, and I remember asking her, but what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
If he's better, he should get the job.
Yeah.
And that was the first time.
Better, he got more points on the exam.
Yeah. But I wasn't there, so I can't judge, who's better or not.
To be fair, he did get the position.
He did get that position, But I remember that there was a risk of him not getting it because of the involvement of this Frauenbeauftragte, what you said, what is it, HR department or something? No, it's not HR department.
No.
But
it's specifically for female rights, women's rights within the institution.
That exists in every big German institution. Something I also hadn't known prior to that. Yeah. So remember, that was the first time. I didn't think about it a lot afterwards. I remember I was just a bit confused by it. I was happy when he got it because I knew him more, and I
Yeah.
thought he was a really, really amazing teacher. I remember, but I didn't think about it until way afterwards when I started, learning also in school about
Yeah.
this whole thing. But that was like my first time I became aware of it. And it was interesting, it was already there. I immediately had this I was on team fairness,
Yeah,
I
of
was on
course.
team the better person should get the
Yeah.
job and not, despite, being a girl. I didn't feel like, I was a part of it at all. Anyway, so that was the first time I became aware of that world. And then again, far later on. So let's get to the more general question. In your own career, have you felt that it was more a blessing or a curse being a woman? And maybe we can also expand that on whether you think that currently it's more of a blessing or a curse to be a musician that is part of a minority.
Well, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't be so sure that I am part of a minority. I don't know. I don't know the facts or the statistics, but especially when it comes to musicians, I feel like there's so many women out there. But I'm not sure. I'm not
No, but I
talking
mean,
about
there is.
orchestras. I'm talking about, like soloists.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk about successful soloists, if you've like the last century.
Yeah.
I mean,
my
there is-
generation?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it's interesting to talk also about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
switch.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking about that's why I'm asking, in your experience.
Well, I mean, first of all, in my experience, I always felt that it was a blessing that I was a girl. Because there were situations where looks, for example, played a role and a very positive, helpful role that, if I were a guy, would have probably gone differently. As in, my abilities being taken seriously. I felt that was always the case. I never had the feeling that because I'm a girl, I'm not being taken seriously or anything like that, or that I had to work harder for something. Also not. The big question that always comes up, the women have kids and
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
is different in our job because we don't have to take a leave of absence. We don't have all this thing. I had kids and I just continued working. So that was that.
Yeah.
It was basically up to me how I wanted to handle it. Of course, to be fair, if I had decided to take a break, like many women might want to, even just for 1 or 2 years, it would have been difficult for me to come back. Difficult to maybe even impossible. So maybe from that perspective, it is difficult.
Right.
As a woman, as a freelance solo pianist, I would say if you decide that
But
you
for
want...
any man to take a 2-year break, it also would be difficult to get
Also.
back to a career.
Of course.
So that's just any freelancer taking a break for 2 years
Yeah.
at the rise of a career.
But of course, when the subject of kids arises, of course, the woman is more likely to take a break because she has more
to do.
with
Yes.
a baby.
It's harder
So, yeah,
for a woman
yeah.
when she's
So,
just given birth.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, with breastfeeding
And her body and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this maybe is one thing where it is harder in our job than, for example, in an office job where after a year you're just back.
Yeah.
Boom, ready to go.
Yeah. Where also you get maternity
You get
leave
paid,
and
exactly,
everything.
yeah. So that's very different. But for me, I just continued working and it worked just fine. So I didn't feel like that was an obstacle at all. And yeah, generally, I don't think I've encountered a situation where it was harder for me as a woman. I have encountered many situations where I was the only woman of the group. Be it with other musicians, be it with conductors, be it with camera teams. This is all so often male. And I always find myself being, oh, hi, I'm the only girl here at the table. But also that never to a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Sometimes more on the contrary.
Yeah.
And what was your question with generations and...
No, that was just more if you
that we're a
think-
minority.
Yeah, like also other minorities. But maybe let's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
another big one. I mean, for me, I totally agree. I never felt at a disadvantage. Also, if anything, at an advantage.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, the fact that there is looks and everything play a role. I just remember one time, and it was also related to kids, where I felt a bit like, what are you talking about? But I didn't feel mistreated. I just felt I was heavily disagreeing with someone who was at a position of authority, where I was at this one kind of symposium, like class, master class, workshop type of thing. And there was one person who is very influential in the music business, and especially when it comes to like rethinking the classical music business. And he was like point blank just saying, do you want to be a mother or do you want to have a career? And I remember looking at him, and I remember it was at the point where you were 8 months pregnant with your first child. And I remember, and I didn't like say anything against it. I was just, you know, I just let him ask that question. But I remember then I had a festival directly the next week. And it was a wonderful festival with wonderful musicians who are also good friends. And I went there, and I remember I came back very disheartened from that workshop because the whole vibe was like a bit, I would say, dogmatic, like a bit like you have to choose the one thing that you are now and everything. And I was like a bit, I would say, intimidated by that whole vibe. And I remember coming back and at the festival with musicians that all have children and are heavily involved in their children's lives and saying like, yeah, that's what he said. And I remember especially the female musicians were like, that's total BS. Like totally, like obviously you can have children, have a career. What I do think, and I find myself thinking about it now, is that for a few years now, when I think about future relationships and things like that, I think about the pragmatic ways in which having kids and a career could work out. And I do think that in order for women to have a career and a meaningful family life, they need to perform more. And I mean, they need to invest more energy in than men. Just because of what you said, you know, with the actual breastfeeding being tied to the child and everything. But I also think that because I would say one of the hardest to resist gender roles that exist is, you know, the nurturing nature of a woman and the caretaking, like raising the children, like that has been going on for such a long time, you know, that in that way, it's a very difficult to separate, like for a woman to be like, you take care of the children, I'm going to do the career. Like that, also not just because it's deemed necessary by society, but also because of what women themselves want. It's like kind of rooted in our biology. So if we really want both, we really have to be ready to give it our all. And I mean, I see it with you. You're currently in that phase. And it really, it has to, like, it needs everything you have to make it work. Like you can't just half do one of them, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I also think it takes more energy for a woman to have kids and a career than for a man to have kids and a career. But as you said, it's totally possible.
It's possible, and you have to, if you have, and by the way, what I would like to, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but very important because I've also encountered that in like recent years when it comes to also women from our field, in our field of work, that I think there are certain women that would rather prioritize family rather than the career. And I think that because of also like the next narrative that we're having in our society, which is like women, power women, it means, you know, earning money and being successful, that is also unnecessarily criticized. I think some women struggle with their own desire to prioritize family and maybe give up a certain level of career in order to have children, which should be totally fine. And I feel is kind of being, I would say, being deemed as something to be slightly ashamed of. You know, currently,
the housewife,
which
stigma.
is a shame. You know, if you want that, go for that. You know,
for sure. And I mean, as everyone says, and it's totally true, it is a full-time job to be a mother who's also a housewife who takes care of everything. I mean, it is nothing to underestimate at all. But what I want to say is that I also think it's very much a matter of your character and, let's say, your aura and how you present yourself. Because I said I never had any negative experiences, but I have friends that are women, also friends that are women with kids that are also performing musicians that have had negative experiences. Either not being taken seriously, or you know the promoter basically saying, "What are you doing here with your kid? Either you come and you play, you know, something like this." So it's also very much a matter of what stance you take. And when I, for example, talk to a promoter, that's actually a very interesting thing. When I first had a baby 4 years ago, and the first concert that I took him to, it was very strange for me to ask the promoter, you know, okay, can I have a baby cot in my hotel room? Can I please have a baby seat for the transfer in the car? You know, all these things. I felt a bit like, uneasy
Yeah,
because
yeah.
usually I'm someone who's very simple and just like whatever, pick me up.
Yeah.
And I remember that it was a concert in France, and I remember immediately taking this stance of this is what it is, deal with it. You invited me, I come with this. And I think that was very important for me. And ever since then, I've never felt like a burden to someone. I've never let myself feel like I'm burdening someone because I'm bringing my kids to a concert.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why maybe also I've only had positive reactions and people have been
I agree
so
with
welcoming.
That, because I also, like, obviously not in the kid area, but in other areas, have had many friends come to me whenever we talk about this topic and saying, but I have had situations where I felt slighted because I'm female. And again, I never felt like that. And I think that it's also a matter of perspective. Like, when do you feel slighted and how do you present yourself? And I think that the message to be taken is, maybe we also have been lucky that we haven't had any traumatizing or any really bad experience because of that. But I think you should be 100% unapologetic and assertive and confident in everything you do. And when people talk to you, many times I think that when people react to me in a way that I didn't expect, I don't think that it is because of something that, like, I'm female or something. Like, maybe it's, I think, because of something like of who I am completely as a character, or more often than not, I think it's because they are kind of insecure about something, that it's something in them that makes them treat me in a way that I don't find 100% pleasant or correct or appropriate, and I've never, that's, I think, and by the way, that's also something that I remember you taught me many years ago, in a totally different context, like in a more friends and boys context. But it's one of the most important lessons that I've taken into my life that are so true, and that have also enabled me to never feel badly treated. More, if anything, I feel more compassionate for other people that are maybe somehow awkward or weird or more, I would say, authoritative than they need to be, or something like that. So it's definitely also a matter of perspective. Like, people can have the same experiences and react to them differently or feel about them differently. Something that I'm sure we're going to talk about also in the next questions of the episode. What I want to talk, like, a bit more of a, I would say, funny perspective on it is, do you think that there are more feminine or masculine instruments in our, and do you think that actually, like, carries through other more, because I mean there are some
there are some
like harp
standards, like harp and flute are the female instruments, and when a guy plays the flute, everyone's like, oh, are you a girl, Having said that, there are some amazing hot male flutists.
That's true, yeah.
And also harpists. I mean, the most famous one is a guy.
That's what I was going to say, that I find it interesting that it's such a female dominated instrument, and yet the most famous is male. That's interesting.
And then I think male is very much the brass section, like a tuba.
And also when girls play brass, they're like kind of like guys, girls, like exactly. This type of girl.
And then when it comes to the typical solo instruments, I don't think I could decide. I think it's very even. Maybe a little bit, the cello has the female form, so like a guy plays it in a way, but of course that's very random. I think piano, violin, cello, viola can very much be both.
The one thing that I've always found interesting, and maybe, like, I would say akin to our CEOs in our industry, is of course conductors. And the fact that, I mean, we're currently in a, like, female conductor craze in our business. Like, female conductors are just popping up everywhere and being supported and everything, which is, on one side a wonderful thing, But I've always found interesting that female conductors themselves present themselves with, I would say, primarily male, in quotation marks, characteristics. Like, they're going to wear a suit. They're not going to wear a dress, right? Like, they often have, like, if they have long hair, like, kind of, pulled back and everything, and or short hair for that matter. They have, I'm not talking about male characteristics in their character, which I don't even know.
Just the outward appearance.
But, like, the outward appearance is very male-oriented.
Except for one of my favorites, Barbara Hannigan, who sings and conducts in full-on gowns, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I think it's so cool how she does it.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting that, and I found that many times I've thought about that, and that I'm kind of like naturally not inclined to do that, which is that many successful women, like also CEOs and everything, they tend to like maleify themselves as if they believe that only by looking male are they going to get that successful. And maybe that's true. Like maybe, it's what came first, their male look or the success, you know what I mean? And this, you know what I mean? But I've always found like it's a shame for female people in power to kind of try to present as male as possible. Like I would love to see a female CEO rocking flowy dresses, and like for me, like many powerful women that I gravitate to the most are the powerful women that keep their femininity as like part of their strength.
But I think this comes from a time where feminine energy and feminine appearance and look were not equal to strength. And I think that that's why, for example, female presidents, of course, wear suits, because if you were wearing as you said, flowy dress, the image would be, this scattered little girl, you know, not this strong, assertive woman.
I still remember, and I mean, of course, that shows us where our society is still, can work on things. And when Theresa May was Prime Minister, when she just became Prime Minister in the UK, there was like this huge picture in some newspaper in Germany, literally just presenting Angela Merkel's outfit with a focus on the shoes versus Theresa May's outfit with a focus on the shoes. And the fact that Theresa May, I think, was wearing what was deemed a very feminine outfit, like a skirt and like, when we're talking about heels, I mean, I'm showing it for those of you seeing it, like tiny heels. And I mean, Angela Merkel is always hugely conservative and just, pants, suit, low shoes and everything. And that was what was the focus on. Like still, of course, it's always the thing that when women are in some, position of power or attention, I mean, even with us, like our outfits are always mentioned. But it's always like us in our beautiful dresses or in our this and our that.
But I think the very important distinction is we have an artistic job where our appearance is even part of the job. The outfit might match the concept of the concert and the piece that we're playing. So it can be very much to our advantage, as we said before, looks and maybe looking sexy or, wearing a long dress. This is part of it. If you are a president like Angela Merkel, you don't want people focusing on your appearance, and it takes away from your mental what you're trying to portray, a mentally strong, stable, super.
Do you know what I just wonder,
person.
like spontaneously now? I think that like it's so interesting because we always talk about it again, and the artistic thing is such a handicap for guys. Are always like, we can only wear a suit, and you can wear all these dresses and short and long and colors and cuts and everything. And I feel like, I mean, I've got no idea the historical background of it, but like the suit is sort of a uniform for men to be like, in a way, socially acceptable without it being in any way a statement on anything other than it's just kind of a blank canvas from which they can then, be opinionated in one or the other direction, like in all the jobs, whether it's politics or business or anything. And maybe kind of women have not figured out officially
like their suit,
their uniform, like their blank canvas. And that's why like women are trying to take the male canvas, but because in the rest of, in the rest of their lives, women are much more into fashion and to like expressing themselves and, creatively inclined to express with their clothes. And maybe I'm not saying that would be like a necessary step, like have women wear one type of outfit. But I think that is what it is. The fact that we don't have the kind of completely unofficial blank canvas outfit that works, unless it's maybe the suit, like the male suit.
Yeah, or I was wondering maybe the blank canvas outfit is actually, the former dress which we're trying to get away from.
Oh, like the kind of conservative
exactly.
knee-length dress with like, interesting. Yeah, but it's interesting because I feel that in a way maybe men at some point sacrifice their rights to be like super individualistic in order to be effective, And that, and I'm not saying that is a good payoff, but that women, also it's a different time, but kind of like, like to be individualistic. Not more than men, but like in terms of their fashion, it's more, I would say, widespread for women to be more individualistic.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about this later, but I think it's also just part of the innate female and male characteristics, men striving for different things than women.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
When
Yeah.
I say this, I just want to say not all men, not all women,
Yeah.
but
But
just
like
generally
the
a
average,
majority.
if you will.
The
Yeah.
average,
The majority,
the
yeah.
average. Of course, there are men that want something that the average woman wants and vice versa, and that's totally fine. But just the average woman strives for maybe more creative expression than a man.
Yeah.
Or also more, as you said, into fashion, more visual,
Yeah.
visually expressive,
yeah.
this type of thing. And
Because I think that if a man is like sort of super hot, let's just say like very, very put together hairstyle, like very well tailored suit, maybe like slightly tight suit, that is also commented on. Like
Yeah.
if it's something like for example, with Justin Trudeau became prime minister, right, of Canada, everyone was talking about that he's good looking, or Macron even, like when there is an optical characteristic that
Yeah.
somehow immediately jumps at you, it's commented on on
course.
either
Yeah.
gender.
Yeah.
It's just that the fact that women so often just like what they wear, there is not the average outfit for a woman. There is only individual different types of outfits for women. There is the conservative woman, the like wilder, more expressive woman, the one that wears patterns, the one that wears like very elegant looking. Like there are only types. There is not the like one kind of normal thing, which I find nice. But I think that's the reason why it's always commented on, and
Yeah.
why it's so kind of difficult not to notice, is that more elegant? Is that more, because it also expresses like kind of what character you are.
of course, it expresses what character you are, but also I do think that it is a bit of a problem that it's such a distraction.
Yeah.
What the woman
Yeah.
is wearing. Again, not in our field. In our field,
Because
it's part
it
of the
enhances
part
it,
of the
yeah.
performance.
Yeah.
But in any other field, that whenever Kate Middleton or Princess
Yeah.
Diana
Yeah.
make an appearance, it's all about what was she wearing.
Yeah.
It first of all, it puts pressure on what are you going to wear.
Yeah.
And secondly, it of course takes away from everything intellectual, mental, anything that has to do with the inner world of the person.
Yeah.
It's all about the outer
Yeah.
world, and the inner world is not being discussed. This is being discussed for the
But to be fair,
men.
Prince William always looks the same. That's why it's
Yeah,
never
exactly.
commented upon.
Yeah.
So I would say that, this is not a very well thought through idea that I would like to sign, but would we be ready to trade off the fact that you can be individualistic and change your appearance according to the event by saying that, okay, let's have Kate Middleton also wear the same thing every time, and then it would also never be commented upon after two
of
or three
course.
times,
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is in the interest
Well, I
of
think
women
that's what the female conductors might be doing.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Because I think in their position, they just have to be taken seriously.
Yes.
They're going in front of that orchestra. There is no room for the violinist saying, look at that little short dress. And the cellist saying,
Yeah.
oh, but I like the shoes
I'm sure it's
yesterday."
still coming, by the way. I'm very sure
Yeah,
that is
but I
still
think,
coming.
I think this is why they're doing it. They're taking
They wanna
away
be-
all of that. As you said, they're sacrificing it. Because, I know some of these female conductors, and in their everyday life, they're not like that.
Yeah,
At all.
But it
when
somehow
they go in
it
front of the
somehow
orchestra,
it somehow means that I would say being different or being too individualistic takes away from your authority. In a way.
I guess.
Because,
in that- yeah.
I would say that instinctively, I would say there is a way to keep not having to present as neutral as possible and still be taken seriously.
Well, it
But-
takes away from your authority because it gives more room to be attacked. If you're individualistic, you're more in the extremes. So someone might love you more,
Yes.
but someone might
Yeah.
hate you more. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
just very serious and plain,
Yeah.
then maybe people won't fall in love with you, but they won't be able to attack
Yeah.
you so easily, and they will just have to
Yeah.
listen to you.
Of course, I gravitate more to the first.
Yeah.
Be individualistic and.
But in
have-
in a position of a leader, be it a political leader or a leader of an orchestra, of course you don't need people to love you. You just need them to follow you.
Well, of course, you have conductors who maybe not because of their fashion are super individualistic and have that hype of
course.
being hated and loved
Yeah, yeah.
simultaneously. That works. But no, I understand what you
Yeah.
mean. It's a very interesting way of looking at it,
Yeah.
like this kind also with what the suit signifies and
Yeah.
what that means and the trade-off. Okay, so we've already touched upon it, of course, so much, but maybe if there is any other thoughts left on it, of course, the topic of looks. Do looks play a role in the way it's perceived upon with guys or with girls? Because, I mean, there are some very obvious facts.
I mean, yeah. One thing that I find very annoying, actually, as a girl, is that looks play a role in the way that the younger you are as a woman, the more desirable you are. Everyone's trying to look young. And there's even this saying, a man ages like fine wine and a woman ages like fruit.
I have heard the first, I hadn't heard the second. Interesting.
And so, it's a bit, the man grows older and whatever, he's still handsome. The woman grows older and frantically tries to still look young.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that's annoying and that's problematic also, look-wise. So, of course, looks play a role and the women just have to always look as young as possible.
But I always wonder with these things, whether it is the men's opinion, because that's like kind of, right, that's the underlying assumption. That men want women to be young and women don't mind men to age normal, right? Mm-hmm. Or I wonder whether it is a pressure put on at least to the same extent from women themselves, because it's the women buying the products, it's the women perpetuating this industry. And many times, the same way that, it's with makeup and like looking as perfect and fake as possible, where especially you are of the belief that, men love the natural look and not the like super made up look. And I tend to believe that men respect a woman that, ages gracefully. I'm not saying like don't take care of yourself, but I mean, don't Botox yourself up until you're unrecognizable. There is a huge spectrum between those two things.
I totally also think, of course, at this point, it's probably the women leading this whole, women have to look young thing. But I think that the origin does come from somewhere else. Yeah. Because also just simple things like, I want a young bride, a young untouched virgin, this whole thinking, I think that's what it's connected to ultimately.
Like purity and things like that. Yeah.
And, in every love poem, it's always, he found his young bride. This word young always plays a role. So I think it does come from a time where this was valued just simply because young meant untouched. And that's what you were looking for, an untouched woman. But nowadays it's completely shifted and the women are going crazy.
Yeah. Because I keep thinking back to this one clip that's a bit unrelated, but to this one clip that I saw of couples being interviewed, I don't know, the 60s or 50s or something like that, about whether the man should be present at the birth of their children. And I mean, now, if a man were to say, I don't want to be present, I think it's, I don't know, disgusting or something, we would stone him and be like, oh my God, how can you be? The woman is pregnant for 9 months, it's your child. And interesting, and obviously like something between then and now shifted, changed. Now it's very normal for men to be present at their children's birth. And I remember that with that interview, it was like just taking a poll on the street, that it was the women that didn't want the men to be present. They were like, no, this is not a place for the man. I don't want him to see me like that, things like that. So I always wonder whether we are being, whether we are losing sight of who is the one that wants certain things and therefore losing sight of our own capability to influence these things. If we didn't want women to have the pressure to look as young as possible, maybe it's women that need to make the change. You know what I mean? Like this type of thing. Yeah. I'm trying to take back control of the situations that are unsatisfying. And I believe that there is a lot of control to be taken.
I mean, I would definitely say that the origins did not lie with the women. As I said, the origins definitely lied with the men and with the
You mean
the
like the young thing now, not the birth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With the image that society gave or that men gave society, I don't know. But that's where the origin is. Now, I think it's absolutely our responsibility
I agree with that statement.
To take back control.
It has shifted in a way. Yeah, no, I agree.
Exactly. And I also think, be a confident woman, just be yourself. Like, wasn't it Audrey Hepburn or someone who said like, it wasn't Audrey Hepburn, the actress that said the most beautiful thing you can do is to just age gracefully.
I don't know who said it, but I agree.
So just, don't be intimidated by all these things and just stop doing it. And then that's what's going to be the new normal. Because the normal right now, I find, is scary.
No, I agree. And I think the normal is also not beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who we are kidding. I mean, when I see these older like 55, 65-year-olds that are trying to imitate a 40-year-old, it's so plain to see how much fakeness goes into it. And I immediately connect that to insecurity, which I find much more off-putting than security and like being proud of who you are. And I mean, I don't know, I find it, the thing that I find astounding is that it doesn't even look good. You know, if it looked good, you might say, yeah, but look, it looks amazing. She actually looks like she's 30, but no one looks like they're 30, you know?
Exactly. It just looks unnatural.
It looks unnatural. And I mean, many times I understand, of course, that like the some details, you know, that, you know, you don't want to look, I don't know, like you don't want your skin to be completely spotted, or I don't know what, I understand the little details, but the general philosophy that youth and innocence and purity is somehow deemed as more attractive than the opposite, which would be, you know, wisdom, experience, individuality, and like kind of, I would say the opposite of purity, not to be like something more dirty, but something more real and authentic.
Yeah.
I never understood why people would choose inexperience over experience. Like any self-respecting person would choose inexperience over experience.
Yeah, exactly.
In anything, you know, like
when you grow older, you should be proud and, you know, be proud to present what you've lived, because this shows that you are someone who knows stuff, someone who has lived stuff. And and I mean,
not
downplay that.
Absolutely.
Not make you look dumber.
Absolutely. And I mean, of course, these magazines that sell, who read these magazines? Women read those magazines, you know, like that says like, oh my, look at J-Lo, she looks the same like she was when she was 40, and now she's
J-Lo 50. Is I know someone who's just super healthy.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that what is being complimented on her is not look at the new music or new dance move or new performance, but the fact that she managed to still look extremely young, you know. I think generally we should switch from we should definitely switch to healthy. Like what needs to be put into the center of women's appearances, whether it is pertaining to age, whether it is to weight, whether it is to like amount of product used or anything, it should be health and not some visual characteristic like thin, fat, boobs, skin tone, hair color, hair, whatever, curly or non-curly, something like that. It should be healthy, because if we switch, most things that are naturally attractive to people is what is healthy. If we just kept that alone and stopped poking our fingers into that equation and trying to create something unnatural in either direction, I think we would all be much happier if we just focused on health rather than some end result that we deem should be the healthy look. Because healthy looks different on different people, but all within, I would say, a framework that is attractive.
And also, I think when it comes to fitness, you know, don't focus on, you know, being the crazy bodybuilder or being the, I don't know, this type of body. As you said, if you just focus on actually feeling healthy, being healthy, you know, eat well, move a normal amount of movements, then I think the rest is going to just come automatically.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, the people that so-called age gracefully, of course, there is some gene like jackpot certainly also attached to that. Let's not kid ourselves. Like, you know, there are people that have easier to handle genes than others when it comes to appearance, but are also the people that do healthy things consistently throughout their entire lives. I mean, your partner is one of the best examples. He's over 40 and he looks extremely young.
He looks very young,
because he's constantly, you know, I mean, obviously he was an athlete when he was younger and all these things play into being healthy. But I mean, that's definitely a big thing. Let's get back to the music industry. Because the thing that I obviously always have in the back of my mind when it comes to looks is the level of sexiness you choose to portray. And that I find is much more prevalent with female artists, musicians, than male. Obviously, if a male artist is good looking, that is definitely in his favor. I mean, there are many like people that are not famous because of, like, men that are because of their looks, but definitely their looks have helped, I would say. But with girls, it's always like even when you like give pictures and everything, it's always like, okay, is it a more sexy, a more revealing picture? Is it a short dress? Is it a serious look? Is it a smiling look? Is it a more romantic look? Whatever. And of course, I would say, pinnacle of that discussion are two, I would say, very famous female pianists who are of varying quality, in my opinion. We don't have to name them. But both of them, the first thing that is mentioned when you talk about them are the outfits, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about the pianists, I think that it's very often the case that they are reduced to their looks because they draw so much attention to the look and through the outfit and through the whole presentation and through the whole image, which is a shame because both of them are amazing pianists. Both of them are really, really good. And I think we had this discussion just very recently with a friend. And both of them really know how to play. And the discussion very often shifts to, oh, but they're actually not so good, but they look good.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I prefer
famous.
one far to the other. But
Okay,
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah,
but,
and I find, I mean, in my opinion, with the one pianist, it's really, I mean, anyone who knows about the music industry will immediately know which one we would probably be talking about. But with her, I find it so interesting because she is skilled so above averagely in all respects. Like, technically, it's almost superhuman, but in also all other regards, like she's a serious musician. She's not like just, some sort of technical, show-off person. Like, she's so skilled. And but her career in, like, the way I perceived it, the first things that I heard about her before anything else was the outfits. And I wonder whether that was the springboard of her career, actually.
So, that's what I mean. So when you talk about them now, you kind of always hear, it's the hot one and the sexy one and whatever. And no one talks about how they play, although they both play very well. And I think it's so unfair that people speak about, or sometimes they kind of insinuate that the, maybe not so great but good looking girl that's playing, because I think that's nonsense. And as you said, the moment when both of them really came onto the radar of everybody, like on a really international level that everyone in the music business know them, is because of what they were wearing. There were literal articles about the outfits. And
now comes the big question. Do you think that one or both or either of them would have been able to achieve that level of fame as male pianists do? And I mean, as, by the way, other not that level, but I mean, they're also especially like very good, especially one of them. So do you think they would have achieved the same level without the outfits?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think they would have achieved the same level. And I think this is where the crux is. Because this is now where, of course, you could say, well, they're lucky that they are women and they can use this. But of course, it's also a shame that they have to use this.
But I
because
wonder
that's
whether
the
they have to. Like I agree that it is a shame. And I agree that I cannot guarantee, like, I don't feel comfortable saying, of course they would have.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I think, especially like one of them, I would say is the biggest name to come out of the last few, like, decade, I would say, right? I mean, there is no other that compares.
In both cases, they've become so famous that they have transcended just the music business and have gone into the general entertainment industry, going from jewelry to Hollywood to everything. So they are present in everything. And I think this type of fame is also not even common in male musicians of our generation. And I think this level of fame, I can only think of one male name that is on that level. And other than that...
Yeah. So, okay, why do you think he managed to get to that level and she wouldn't have without the dresses? What was special about him that catapulted him to the type of fame?
Well, I think that his career started obviously with, the typical way of a very famous older generation supporting him, conductors and so on. And then, I mean, I never really followed his career, so I cannot really say exactly what it was. But I feel like he was also someone who went very quickly also into a little crossover direction. So I feel like that also played a role. I don't perceive him as a strictly classical pianist.
I mean, the way I perceive him is a super strictly classical pianist that then made few appearances like Pavarotti style with
exactly.
other musicians. But I mean, I remember that what like his big thing, which is also her big thing, which was like that he was technically so skilled.
Right.
And that his interpretations were like kind of not following the norm, but very individualistic. And it was the same as it was with many other musicians that like get that level of stardom, that the critics, you know, builded him up and heralded him as this like incredible genius. And then when he reached that level of like kind of untouchable fame, it was then all about, what ridiculous interpretations and blah, blah. And I remember that when we kind of started becoming aware of musicians, it had already tipped to people saying like, you know, he's not super serious, which is why we might have perceived him as that. You know,
I mean, it's hard for me really to say much about him
because he's the most famous classical musician of our time, I would say. He's the one that appears in talk shows,
for
you know,
sure.
like Jimmy Kimmel
for sure.
and stuff like that.
I also feel like he was, you know, of course, if I say that, it's obvious what we're talking about, but he was like China's superstar. You know, he was the person who made many people in that country want to use piano to come to the Western world.
But I mean, these are all special things, I would say, that are very, you know, close to the art. He didn't need a gimmick to...
He didn't need a gimmick. Yeah, I think actually, you're right, there was no gimmick. But somehow in my mind also, I might be wrong, I feel like he's also a bit older generation already. He's not same age,
I mean, I would say
right?
he is between what we would call the actual older generation of like Kissing that are still performing today, older generation, and like the ones that we're talking about now.
He's like in the middle.
He's in the middle. But
because I feel like he had more of a conventional career than the people that are coming up and coming today.
Like, you know, gimmicky stuff are more important now than it used to be, for sure. Of course, but there is one other one that I know that you were pointing towards, who is another one who's I know
so
who you mean.
He is very much this generation, I would say. And he, I think, is really a good example of, you know, using the typical male characteristics, I would say.
You know,
he's very much the intellectual,
philosophical,
exactly.
Things like that,
And he also is on the level that he's transcended just the music industry, you know, gone into other branches of the entertainment industry, even into political levels. And I think that his behavior as a woman would be impossible, to be honest. I think this would not be possible.
I mean, I don't know. I would have to think on that. I wouldn't so easily agree to that, but I would have to think about that. What I find, though, interesting that even him, I mean, he's not, I would say, like someone who's the first thing you think is, handsome, you know, right?
Yeah.
But even he worked on his appearance.
For sure.
To you know, like to create an image, you know?
Well,
and the interesting thing is, because
you
you immediately said, and I find that interesting because I can't say I've like landed on an opinion that I'm 100% comfortable with yet. A woman could not have this type of career. And I wonder whether, because it is so widely believed that a woman could not have this type of career, that's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? Because I would say, why not? You know? The thing, like...
Well, I mean, why not?
Of course, you know, it needs it needs someone to combine many different things, you know?
I mean, first of all, you need that type of a woman. Okay, but
that
that
you need
totally
that level
exists.
of skill, but that exists, Okay.
But let's say that this version exists as a female.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the real problem is that the comments will not be taken in the same way coming from a female. Because if he says it, it's like, oh, interesting, okay, yeah, a bit controversial, but interesting. Coming from a female, I feel like in that quantity, like they come from him, it would just be like, this is annoying, you know, what is that?
I mean, I would say that nowadays it's different. I think nowadays everything would like,
no, I mean, this
everything
is like
coming,
7-8 years ago when it started.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure about that with him. I think that, because I find that it's kind of like two wrong things happening at the same time. One thing is society maybe, I would say, accepting in the image of a, you know, intellectual, philosophical, slightly opinionated artist more when it comes from a man. That definitely being true.
Yeah.
But I would say that the other thing that is also the second wrong is that women being so convinced of the fact that the only extra thing they can offer other than their skill, are their looks, that they are fulfilling that prophecy as well. And I believe there is more room in society for, I would say, smart, intellectual, this type of, let's just say prototype of the intellectual career rather than the, oh, she's so beautiful or so sexy career, than we give society credit for. And I think that nowadays, obviously, the reason why there is more room for it are not reasons I'm necessarily, I would say, like I also find a bit scary. You know, like
but I mean, it's going back to that discussion we had in the beginning with the suit and the conductors.
Yeah.
You know, you also said that somehow you have this strange feeling when you see this conductor that's not living out her female side, but that's like very much hair back and, let's say, focusing on those intellectual. And see, even in us who are so pro-strong women, we still find that not strange, but somehow surprising.
I find, the only thing is I find it a bit intriguing because it is, I mean, there's so many different female conductors that all adhere to that same
But I mean, because,
idea.
As we said before, because they obviously want to stress that intellectual side. And because you said, as an intellectual woman, and then therefore have to feel or have to, I don't know, take away from their visual appearance.
But so, I mean, obviously, I
think the goal is to somehow manage to live it and to teach society that both is possible. The combination of have the female side plus the intellectual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I agree with 100%. And I think that, I mean, maybe I'm too naive or optimistic or haven't been disappointed enough or anything, but I fundamentally believe that, especially in our time, that is possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And that one of the most toxic things that we can spread, anyone who has the slightest bit of influence over other people, or even just in a discussion with someone, is to pretend that is not possible. Because I would say that even if something is not probable, the worst thing you can do is make it look that it's impossible. Because most things that, most progress is done by someone believing that something improbable is possible.
And the change totally lies within us, just like with the youth craze. It's us who have to stop it by just stop doing it.
Yeah.
It's also us who just have to go ahead and be assertive and express our intelligent thoughts. And just
I agree.
Heard and kind of demand to be heard.
And to be honest, for example, with me, I'm very vocal and I would say very also unapologetic about my opinions. And I've often gotten comments, especially if like my opinions differed from the norm of that group or whatever, that are critical and are a bit, like you're often very quickly put into a corner of what you are or what you're not. But I think the important thing is I've also never found that threatening. Again, I've always found that to be an asset, to be memorable, to not be lost in a crowd or things like that. I don't know. I mean, it's a huge umbrella of things that fall under that question. So, okay, let's talk about one, I would say, big cliche, also one that I think we've had, we know lots about also from stories from other people, is this concept of sleeping around to the top.
Yeah. Well, I mean, concept obviously exists.
No, and like your thoughts about that. Not I'm not asking whether you would do it, because I know you wouldn't, but I mean, maybe also your own attitude towards it, but what you think about it generally.
Well, I mean, I think it's just something that's part of life. Absolutely. And I think it's not at all only in the music industry, not only in the entertainment industry, it's everywhere. In the office, in whatever, schools, universities, medicine, law, in everything. I think it's part of life, and sleeping to the top, of course, sounds horrible. And I'm sure that there are some people that actually,
ruthlessly
do this. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, I'm doing this person, and then I'm going to get there. But I think in life, it's actually, there's always some kind of human relationship, some kind of chemistry there. And whether it ends up in sleeping with each other or just with some flirty comment, everything's going to influence the action. And it's so hard to draw the lines. I really wouldn't know where do you properly draw the lines. I mean, obviously the word attraction. Consensual is
but
very
you
important.
Would draw the line at attraction, right?
No, but I mean, where do you draw the lines of the behavior, is it going to be the one look, or is it going to be the touch, or is it going to be the lingering
what are you gonna let happen before you set the boundary?
Yeah, or what exactly? And if two people somehow have chemistry and something happens, and then something professionally good happens, it is what it is. I don't condone it. I'm not totally against it. I just think it's part of life.
Yeah.
And we kid ourselves if we think that there can be a world where this does not exist.
Yeah.
Personally, I would never be able to just switch off my mind and say, I'm going to go to this person that I actually find disgusting
Yeah.
and just do this in order to get something.
Yeah. I mean, not just from the perspective of finding the person disgusting. Also, I could never be on stage feeling like I earned this moment with something other than my musical skill.
Yeah.
Like that is the other like big side of it. I was thinking about this a lot actually before when I was preparing this episode. I was thinking it exists primarily in two dynamics: women sleeping with more powerful men to do it, and gay men sleeping with powerful gay men to do it. It very rarely exists men sleeping with powerful women to do it, which means that the only person, I would say, not characteristically engaging in it is the powerful woman, because the not powerful man and the powerful the powerful man and the not powerful woman does it. Which the only reason that I can think of is I would say that men generally, that's like a general thing. I've a bit read some research on that. Like to pick partners that are intellectually, or I would say generally, either on their level or below them. Yeah. Women generally tend to choose partners that are either on their level or above them. That's like a general, just what they find attractive. Again, most women, So one has to say that when it comes, I don't know if you can say toxic masculinity or whatever, that powerful women are not necessarily attracted by the idea of using their power to sleep with people that are less, competent, whatever than them, because it's not something they find attractive. And that cannot be said for powerful men. Powerful men find it very attractive, the idea to...
I also feel like the issue of dominance plays a big role, because dominating, I mean, there's of course dominance on every level, but I feel like it is a very male thing to find pleasure in dominating someone by engaging with someone in such an intimate way when you're the more powerful person, and then maybe having the open path of, I can help you, I cannot help you, do you want something from me that I can give you? I think, as you said, for a woman, that's not necessarily something so attractive. They're just
like the kind of powerless
boy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it's a matter of dominance, that it would be a bit more of an insidious, I would say, observation.
Yeah, not necessarily insidious. I just mean you have the power. By dominance, I mean you have the power to decide something for that person in their life, to maybe make a change.
Because I do think that women are, I don't know, I would say, if I think about it, also very attracted to the idea of power. I just think that you don't want to, you're not interested in exerting that power in a sexual way.
I think it's the power over the less powerful person. And in my mind, that's just a theory. I kind of put it back to the fact that the man wants to be the head of the family, and the man wants to be the one that provides and also, of course, decides for the kids what is good for you, what is bad for you, what are you going to do. And the woman is the nurturing part, the loving part. The man is the kind of decisive part. So I feel like the man decides for the child, and the powerful man is maybe reminded of that feeling that, there's someone in a less powerful position. He can be like, if you make this step, you can go there.
You mean the damsel in distress myth, kind of?
Yeah, I don't even necessarily mean it in this distress way, but in a way, yes, in a way. And, I can help you go there. And for the woman, that's not really a thought that we go to, you're less powerful. If you do this, go there. It's more like, as you said, let's find an equal partner. Let's talk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so, and that brings me to the last question, one, of course, that could not be missing from an episode like this, which is Metoo movement related. Basically, what maybe let's save the actual our opinion of the entire movement for a later episode, because I think it's definitely something I would love to talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe just let's keep it just on your
Just simple,
experiences.
yeah.
No, on your experiences. If you've ever feel like you had a Me Too experience or not, or
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the most obvious Me Too experience was one that we had together. Actually, I had it in my mind for the story at the end of the episode, but I can already say it now.
We can combine it. Yeah.
So
I think I know which one it is.
basically, Kiveli and I were in a very nice hotel in a different country, and there was a conductor there who conducted the concert there, and we had gone to it that evening, and then we were there was also someone else there, and we were all hanging out in the restaurant, I don't know, in the bar, I don't remember. So two girls, Kiveli and I, and then two older guys.
Well, I mean, who'd played the concert. It sounds really weird.
Who played,
the soloist and the conductor.
And we met the conductor that evening for the first time, I think. And he's definitely a famous, powerful person. And we were hanging out, and then it was time to say goodbye. And then,
I mean, let's just say that the entire evening had been what I would call flirty with no obvious consequence. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whenever, innuendos and things like that.
Flirty in a way that, I mean, flirty in a ridiculous way.
In
a way
that's what I mean with flirty with no consequence. You know,
in a way that in no possible scenario.
No, but the
would
reason
something
why
ever
I'm
happen.
saying it is because I want to be very fair to everybody involved. And I mean, the vibe was Danae and I are both very extroverted, easygoing people. And I mean, the boundaries were, in my mind, clear, as they were. But there was, the vibe was not okay, bye, I'm gonna. It was, it was very. We were kind of enjoying each other's repartee in a
But
flirty
I just
way.
want to say there was, when you say flirty, there was no touching.
No,
there
no,
was
no.
Nothing.
No,
there was
nothing
nothing
like that. No,
yeah.
no. But
it was this conversation in my mind could happen with anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
So then we said goodbye, and then he left his jacket. Right.
What happened was while we were at the hotel bar, we had we were outside, and without me saying, I didn't say that I was cold. I was just outside in an outfit. He said, maybe you're cold. Here, let me give you your jacket. I actually said, no, it's not necessary. But he insisted, and I was like, okay. So he gave me his jacket, and then 10 minutes later, he said he wanted to go to his room. And as he said goodbye, I took off his jacket and wanted to give it to him. He said, no. Bring it to my hotel room. This is my hotel room number. And again, I insisted. I was like, no, actually, I'm okay. I'm not cold. He's like, and he insisted again, no, bring it to my room. And I said, all right, I'll bring it to your room. I want to go to bed in 5 minutes anyway.
Yeah, and then we knocked on the door, and he was there. And of course, we gave him the jacket, and I mean, nothing happened.
No,
but he was definitely
the interesting thing was
for
two
it.
things. Obviously, he told me to go to his room. No, he didn't say come by yourself. But I mean, I was supposed to give him his jacket, and I remember it was kind of clear that you would come with me, but obviously the situation was far easier by the fact that there were two of us.
Of course, yeah.
We knocked on his door, and I remember he was in a bathrobe.
Yeah.
But again, what I remember from that situation was that the moment I saw him and he saw me, the move was so clear and almost so honest in a way, this is what I'm trying to do right now, that I just said, thank you so much, see you tomorrow, and I almost we laughed with each other in a way, because it was he made his move, and it was my
he didn't just make one move, he made 3 moves.
No, I meant the move being he opened the door in his bathrobe.
Right.
You know what I mean? He made it as clear as he could possibly be, and I did not want to, obviously. And I mean, obviously not because I would never sleep with a conductor, but obviously because there was zero attraction from my side, So, and then, I just gave him his jacket and I closed the door. I've told this story to many people, and, many people are like, yeah, you were lucky that he didn't push on and everything. Seriously, I was lucky that you were also there. I mean, that was the major thing that, kind of put a stop to it for sure also. But also, I believe that, he tried, and
as you said, he tried in a very, very pleasant way.
Yeah, he didn't push
there
me
are
in any
also
way.
very
Yeah.
much pushier.
Yeah, of course,
people.
of course. And also like, in
But
this
still,
situation.
it was a very obvious one.
Yeah.
After saying no 4 or 5 times, he was still
trying to, yeah.
insisting.
And of course, that thought never crossed my mind.
And
like,
I mean,
should I maybe to get a concert? It wasn't even in the frame of like my evaluation of the situation.
But also just, I mean, of course, it's all about the inner values. But look-wise, I mean, I just want to say it was a Beauty and the Beast situation.
For sure.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And when I say beast, I'm not exaggerating.
I agree. I mean, I'm trying. yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I mean, if it were a Beauty and the Beauty situation, I might have been attracted to him, and then the situation would have been totally different.
Because he kept insisting, it's not like
okay, like as if
oh, maybe you're gonna change your mind.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Yeah, no, it was a very, very classic, I would say, conductor using his position to get sex and having only only that to offer in that moment.
Yeah. And I'm sure that he's been successful very often.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking of this. That's also the one that comes to mind from my side. I'm thinking of it. I mean,
maybe I just want to say, of course, I've also had some other experiences that were not as obvious.
Yeah.
But still some, smaller Me Too experiences. One with like a friend / very successful musician who it was all about. He was in the position that he could suggest names for a series, and he kind of and my name was on the list, and he had to say like who he would suggest, and we were talking, and he told me about that, and he was kind of like, yeah, well, you have to work for me to suggest, that was very awkward and also very obviously
in that direction
using that, so something like that, several situations like this, but nothing super major.
I mean, to be honest, most of the times that I have seen or witnessed relationships or connections between two people that were very clearly in the position of like someone with a lot of authority and someone considerably younger and like can only benefit from their influence. I'm thinking also in terms of like teachers and students. Like I've more often than not experienced it being started by the quote unquote less influential person. I mean, that is a different, this is not Me Too related. This is more like, because it was a very normal thing, and one that I find actually quite interesting that we just took it as such a normal thing, because it's so weird that especially the past generation of extremely well-known and accomplished professors would at some point have like a girlfriend who was a student.
And then also marry her.
Sometimes also marry her. And it was like, there is literally like, I can think of the top of my mind of like 5 examples that just come to my mind.
And my favorite example is a professor who I was talking to at the table in the Mensa of the university, and who said the sentence to my face, I've known my wife since she was a little baby.
Yeah.
I was just holding her in my arm. And because there was an age difference of, I don't know, 30 or 40 years.
40 years or
something like this. And he was like, and I was just stroking her. And I just thought, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. I mean,
someone say about his wife.
That is creepy. Yeah. So, but I mean, like, it's a very common relationship model of like the old professorship types, the ones that basically don't have a family but just live for their class and things like that. I mean, in all fairness, including our teacher, he also had student girlfriends.
Yeah.
But it's not, I mean, in that situation, that's why I would like to separate it from the Me Too movement. It's almost a separate thing. It's not like it is love. It is true love that is
I don't know if it's love from the teacher's side.
Oh, okay, no, but I meant from the side of the student.
Okay.
That is motivated, of course, by things like, awe of the competence and the person and their understanding of music or art or whatever. And of course, I would say that in many cases there is a very dysfunctional aspect to it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also hope for, the teacher helping you in this and that.
I don't know if that is the, I mean, in the situations that I think about, my, like, you know, I haven't spoken to them. My feeling was that there was true love and affection for the person, maybe coming out of unresolved, you know, like things inside you.
I mean, from the teacher's side, I'm definitely sure that it was not true love always.
It depends. We both know that from our teacher, I think his true love was a student, just not, you know, when he was a younger teacher.
But he had millions of student
but
girlfriends,
you know
and
which
not
one I
all
mean.
of them were true loves.
No, but I mean, like, I'm just
no,
saying...
but I mean, let's not pretend that these professors are
I'm
madly
saying-
in love with every student that they sleep with.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, I meant like these relationships, not the ones that, I mean, I don't know about like the sleeping thing. The one that I meant was the one that had like year-long relationships that didn't last like for a phase, but was like an actual thing that had, you know, longevity. So, that's what but that is a bit of a different thing. I think we should definitely do one episode on Metoo and that.
For sure.
Maybe the next episode or maybe the one after the next, because the next one we wanted to do on a different. And we already had so many stories. I don't know. I would have to think. I didn't think of a story to tell about you. Actually, I do have an interesting story. Just like that has totally to do with what we were talking about before, which is that I rarely sit in the audience when you play, because usually when I go to concerts it's because we're playing them together. But I remember one time I was in the audience in the Tonhalle Düsseldorf when you were playing Mozart Piano Concerto, and I was sitting just somewhere in the middle, you know, inconspicuously. And I remember that you went on stage and you were wearing this golden dress with the like backless golden dress that has like, you know, glitter. I mean, it's a very soloist dress. And I remember you came on stage and the first thing like the people in the back row said, like in the row behind me, was like, oh wow, she chose like a very, very beautiful and like outfit, like a dress that like, you know, really attracts attention and everything. And I was like, okay, wow, like literally that was the first thing they said, like, look at that dress, you know?
You know, I played a concert 3 days ago and I wore that dress. And that dress always makes a splash. I went on stage and I immediately heard, you know, from the audience, like, whoa, the dress, you know, all the comments coming. It's very much like, ooh, what's happening? What's happening?
It's the same thing. I remember I was giving a recital and I was wearing, you know, my red jumpsuit. That's like shining red. It's not like a dark red, it's like a hello red. And the critic, the first thing said like, the heading was like recital in a shining red jumpsuit. Okay, then thank you. You know, like it's interesting. But I mean, I've never found it to be a handicap. I just think it's such a cliche that it's just so true, you know, about people. Yeah. All right. So that was kind of a first taste of like this, I think,
a 1.5 hour taste.
Definitely, that we should definitely revisit, I would say. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about a very different topic, about like what we would call like our household plan, which is basically, many people have asked us how we manage to coexist harmoniously in the same household and why we chose to live with each other again after, you know, obviously not living together for 10 years after graduating high school. And to talk about why we decided to do this,
and
how we do it.
Not just with each other, but also with other people in the house, because we very much have this, what we call the open household concept. And I think that's what is most interesting and maybe also foreign to many people. So we will be getting more into that.
All right, then sending lots of love to you all and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to The Sister Trill with Danae and Kiveli.